Hello everybody, welcome back to the Elliott Confidential podcast. My name is Iden Elliott. I'm joined by my brother, Aren Elliott, my father, Christopher Elliott, and my uncle, Dustin Elliott. How are you guys doing today?
Hello, hello.
We're doing good.
Yeah, awesome.
So, over the past 2 weeks, we've done a lot of stuff in Bali, but last week we weren't able to get to the podcast, unfortunately, but we have a lot in store. We've done a lot here in Bali and can't wait to share that all with you. But unfortunately, it has been raining basically constantly while we're here.
You can even hear the rain right now.
Yeah, you can even hear the rain right now.
It is currently raining very hard outside.
We should add some sound effects to the podcast with rain and maybe some thunder, just for dramatic effect.
You don't need to add it, you can already hear it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But I'm trying to think, well, we've been staying mainly in Canggu lately, and we've been sort of eating at the restaurants and making our own food while it rains outside. But we've also explored some other things. There was a full moon and we were able to see the ocean at high tide, which is really scary.
That was today, and it had been raining, and the tide was so high that we could not walk on the beach.
Yeah.
There was a little stair that you walk down, and if you walk down to the bottom stair, you get hit by the water.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Very crazy. And Dustin, you went and did stand-up paddleboarding. How was that?
Yes, I did. It was very, very fun and enjoyable, but also very scary if you don't know how to deal with the waves.
Yeah.
And it's hard if you don't know how to surf or you don't know how to keep your balance on a board. Most of the time I was kind of on my knees trying to get around.
We should mention that Bali is still a developing island, and that when it rains, the sewage goes from the rivers into the ocean, and you can't really swim in the ocean because there's a lot of runoff.
Yeah, there's a lot of sewage that goes into the water.
So this is something that's new to us, is after the rain, don't go into the water.
Well, it's new to us because we're not really ocean-dwelling people that are around the beach a lot, but for most people who are around beaches, they know that when it rains, don't go to the beach. You want to make sure that you probably don't even get in the water, or if you do get in the water, make sure you don't have any cuts on you because you can get sick really quickly.
Yeah. And Dustin, you do have you got an open wound from the coral. How's that?
It's good. I mean, well, it's not really that good. You just have to be careful when you're going to these island destinations. If you don't know the topography of the ocean or of the beach, the bottom of the sea is mostly coral, and that coral is really sharp. And then you have these large waves that are crashing over you and potentially pushing you onto the coral, and it's all razor sharp. So I got my hands and feet and whatnot got shredded.
So here's a pro tip. Before you decide to go in the water, go to the beach at low tide and look to see where the coral is. And then when you come back, you know exactly where to go and where not to go. And if you do go there, make sure you have a pair of booties on.
Yeah.
Those are really, really
and
useful.
they're hard to find to get here. But
They've got them at the grocery store here.
Surprisingly, they have them at a grocery store, of all places.
Expensive?
I have no idea.
Hey guys, can you hear that? That is the rain. It's coming down pretty hard out there. It's monsoon-like. It hasn't stopped since this morning. And it brings us to this week's question, which is...
This week's question is, has bad weather ever ruined your vacation?
And by ruin, I mean there's no way that you could actually go through the vacation. I'm talking about going on a ski vacation and it rains and there's no snow, so you can't ski on it. Something really, really bad like that, which has happened to us before.
Yeah.
We're at a ski resort and it's raining and there's no way you can go out there.
Yeah.
Like in Salzburg.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dustin and I have been on these family vacations before where it just, didn't happen. So tell us about yours. And in just a moment, we will go over your comments from last week.
We're really excited.
We're excited to be reading your comments.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Finally.
One thing that we did and that I'd love to talk about is we went out and bought some musical instruments. Now, the Balinese have several types of instruments that are really unique to Indonesia, to Bali. There are flutes. I mean, Aren, you really did some research, so I'll hand it off to you. Tell us about the flutes, and maybe we could do a little show and tell.
So we bought these flutes. So there's something called the gamelan, which is basically the Indonesian orchestra, and they have a gamelan for every island almost, generally in the Sundanese islands. So if you're looking at Sumatra, Java, Bali, they all have their own gamelan, and they have their own unique music that they play with the gamelan, and the gamelan has a lot of unique instruments. So, for example, there's the suling, which is a flute basically made out of bamboo, and we were able to find a nice shop that sold these suling flutes to us. And
they were this shop was just like it was on a farm. They didn't speak any English.
Yeah.
They only took cash, and they had these they're called samalans.
No. The
Suling.
Suling.
They had these sulings on the wall. Some of them were just pipes that they hadn't really, they were just bamboo that they hadn't really done anything with it. But then we found it, and it has such a beautiful sound. Let me see if I can play some. Really sounds beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, hours of enjoyment that
Hours
we've
of
had.
hours of fun and entertainment.
And I personally am looking forward to staying at a hotel that has one of those big stairwells and sitting in the stairwell and playing with the acoustics and playing one of these Balinese flutes. They're very sturdy too, so I'm not worried about them getting harmed in our luggage. But it's just something very therapeutic. Like when you need a little bit of time and you need to unwind, you can play one of these Balinese flutes, and they're beautiful.
And the great thing is that if you ever come to Bali on a holiday, all you have to do is go over to any one of the temples, and they're going to have a gamelan there, and they play great music. It's really inspiring. Yep.
So, guys, since this is our last podcast from Bali, and we're all going to go our separate ways soon, what did you think of Bali? Let's start with Aren.
Bali is a very interesting destination. I like some parts of it. I like Indonesian food. I like the temples. It's a beautiful destination once you get outside of the city. And there are a lot of amenities. It's very inexpensive too. So those are all positives. Negatives, of course, you can't walk on the streets. Very polluted in some areas. And also sometimes you can be a little bit predatory towards the tourists, but that goes without saying.
Well, we should also say that we've all been to some hotels. Aren and I have been to a lot of hotels. The other guys have been to some of the hotels, but the hotels here are very beautiful, and they are their own world. It's like a little bubble where you don't have to deal with any of the pollution, the lack of sidewalks, the crazy scams that you run into in town, and it's all very, very nice and sanitized for the Western visitor. But you don't really get a good idea of what Bali is really like by going to one of these resorts. It's just very kind of prefab, I don't know, very...
Yeah, it's not the real Bali.
It's not the real Bali. Iden, what did you think of Bali?
It's pretty good.
Okay. I mean, would you come back?
No, I'd go to Jakarta.
Yeah,
I'd come back to Indonesia, but not the island of Bali.
So, Dustin, I'm curious because you didn't really choose Bali. It was chosen for you.
Me.
Yes,
Yeah.
we invited you out here.
Yeah.
What did you think?
I liked it. I would have liked to seen Bali 20 years prior.
Yeah.
I think before all the tourists came, I think Bali was probably really nice. Like if it was just been us here with the islanders, I think that's what makes a vacation special is you get to hang out with local people instead of with thousands and thousands of tourists.
Australians and Russians.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
all
Australians
they're all
with
young and
lip injections, all that stuff.
everyone's
A lot of
partying.
lip injections. It's crazy.
Yeah, a lot of
Cheek
there's a lot of lip injections these days.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's called, lip injections. I call it the duck people.
Well, my thoughts on Bali are it is a nice place to visit. If you want to go to one of the big hotels, for example, the Kempinski was really, that was the last hotel that we went to. I don't even think we talked about it in our last podcast because we hadn't seen it. Beautiful and huge. It has lots of pools. And it's its own world, you know, it's not like the rest of Bali. That's one thing, you can go and do that. If you want to see authentic Bali, really be prepared for, Bali is a developing part of Indonesia. It is, you can't really walk along the streets because there's no sidewalks. There are trash fires from the construction sites. You wake up in the morning and you get a lungful of smoke. And honestly, it is not the kind of place where I would go for a vacation. Well, I think that if we had gone to Ubud, which is in the mountains, far away from the beach, it would have been a different experience. We've been to Ubud a couple of times.
Ubud's nice.
It's probably, you know, it attracts a different clientele.
Yeah.
Canggu, which is where we are now, is for younger people,
Party
and
central.
it's
Party central, yeah.
lots of parties.
Every day, it's like there's people.
You can hear the
making,
music.
like loud
Yeah,
noise.
yeah.
In our
We are the
place.
champions. Every night that restaurant plays, we are the champions.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I think it's better if you are young and you're listening to this podcast. In the unlikely event
Yeah.
you're very young, you should go to Canggu. If you are a little bit older and maybe you're not the nightlife type of person, go to Ubud or maybe go to a different island. I wanted to put in a plug for our next destination. I'm not telling anyone what our next destination is, but it's going to be really interesting. It's a place that a fair number of Americans go to, so it will be familiar to some of you. It is not Indonesia, but we won't tell you where it is. Excited to be reporting from there next week.
Last week's question was, have you ever done something on vacation that you regretted? William says, renting a VRBO on price alone. Pay a little more and avoid ending up in a dump. And I have to say, we have made that mistake one too many times.
Oh,
yes.
yes.
When we were in Los Angeles, we got the cheapest place we could find, and it was a total dump. Seriously.
Oh, this was West Hollywood.
West
yes.
Hollywood. They got a run-down place, didn't fix it up. The floors had to. The floors were not floors, so they had to redo the floors. They had to redo the walls. They had to. The kitchen was not a kitchen, and they just stuffed it with beds. We were like, oh, 4 beds, and it's only, well, here's the thing is, even though it was a rundown place, it was still like $6K because that's the price of West Hollywood. And so, like, paying that much for a bed-stuffed dump, crazy.
Well, I have a different recollection of that
It was
place.
4K.
It was
Correction.
It was $4,000
$4,000?
for a month, which
Oh,
was a really good deal.
The 6K place was in Studio City.
No,
Sorry.
that was 5K in Studio City. Yeah.
Really?
hmm And it was a really vintage place. We were the last people to rent that. They tore it down and they built apartments there. But
Vintage, that's a good way to put it.
It was real vintage.
Lynn says, I took a windsurfing lesson in St. Martin while on a Royal Caribbean cruise. The water was calm, but it was very windy. I never got on the board and fell over so many times, it was not fun. Luckily, the company let me change to water skiing. After telling the driver of the boat not to go super fast, I had a great time.
That's a really good resolution. We were surfing, this was last week, and I couldn't even get out. The waves were so high, I couldn't even get my board out into the water. I tried a couple of times.
Oh, yeah.
That was not good. But I swam in the ocean.
Yeah, that's
But
right.
yeah, always, if you're going to try something like surfing or windsurfing, get a good instructor. But before you do that, always ask if it's a good day. I used to be a diving instructor, and there were days when you didn't want to take any newbies out into the water because it was too much current, too many waves, etc.
Well, this has been the Elliott Confidential podcast. Thank you so much for listening. We hope to hear more from you next week. Remember, our question of the week is, has bad weather ever ruined your vacation? We can't wait to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening. And this is Aren signing out.
And Dustin, we're going to miss you.
I'm gonna miss you guys too.
Yeah.
I'm going to miss you.
Yeah. All right.
I think that he might end up in one more podcast.
No.
Oh, that's right. No. Never mind.
This is when I die.
Yeah.
This is
Yep.
Dustin dies.
We'll see you in
When
a
my
year.
podcast career. Yeah, next year. We'll
Right.
resume next year.
All right.
All right.
Take care, everyone.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.